An extension. He's got 4 more years, $77 million. What do you think about the Celtics' moves this offseason, bringing in Schroeder, having extension on Smart, the development of Pitcher? What do you think about them in the Eastern Conference?
So we just saw the Milwaukee Bucks win the championship, and obviously it was because of the dominance of Giannis and the emergence of Chris Middleton on the big stage. But the key factor was adding Drew Holiday, because not only is he a capable three-point shooter, but he's a lockdown defender. And while Marcus Smart isn't as good as Drew, he provides a lot of those things for the Boston Celtics. And as a matter of fact, he's actually their best passer. And you can't just trade him this offseason and not get fair value in return, especially when you're Brad Stevens and you're now the president, you were the coach. And so what happens in these cases, when you fire the coach in theory and he becomes the president, you know what he does? He invests in the players that he liked when he was the head coach. So that's why you're going to make sure they take care of Marcus Smart. That's why you're going to bring back Al Horford. It doesn't necessarily mean that the Celtics are a contending team in the Eastern Conference, but he is a quality rotation player that I would love to have on my team. An improved three-point shooter, a tough defender, and the heart and soul in a lot of ways of the Boston Celtics.
It's interesting. He went from someone who was always talked about in trade rumors to someone who just signed a 4-year extension with the team. And I think that Brad Stevens had a lot to do that, as you pointed out. He also used to share a backcourt with Evan Fournier, who is now with the New York Knicks. So what Evan Fournier did is he took to social media and said he was just looking for a barber in the New York area. And someone said, you know what? A fella named Kevin, he's in Brooklyn. He cut you up in Tokyo. Maybe he can do it again. And I always say you can be mean if you're funny. Evan Fournier responded with, he needs a barber too. Jalen Rose, I always say you can be mean if you're funny. Is this inbounds for Mr. Fournier?
Well, the social media KFP king, I like how he did the Arnold Horseshack and he instigated. Like, ooh, 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 ooh. Like, there's a guy in Brooklyn that already sliced you up in the Olympics, and then he teed it up like Sean Kemp from Gary Payton. But here's the deal. Jacoby, you did teach me you can be mean if you're funny, but if you're Evan Fournier, he got to be feeling himself. Like, he scored 28 against Team USA this summer. He just got a big deal with the Knicks. The Knicks and the Nets are trying to create a crosstown New York rivalry. So he's just feeding into it. That's all.
Can I defend my guy Kevin Durant for a second? You've spent so much time and energy on your hairline, and you wear a furry bucket hat on TV if it's not 100% perfect. Kevin Durant don't care. Like, he puts no effort or energy into making his hair look the way it looks. He's like, you know what I'll do? I'll score 35 in the playoffs, and I don't care if I got a little bald spot. That doesn't bother me whatsoever. That's one thing I like about him, is he's not holding on to something that ain't there. He's just living his natural hair life, which I appreciate. Shout out to you, Kevin Durant, for having the strength to do so.
Easy money sniper. And I got a news flash for everybody. All I do is sit in the chair, dog. I don't do nothing.
It looks good.
All I do is sit in the chair.
Why do we have the hat?
That's it. All I do is sit in the chair.
For soft move.
You know that I'm extremely competitive. This year is all about being the best player in the league.
He's Jalen Rose. I am David Jacoby. We are Jalen and Jacoby. What is
up,
it that we do?
We give the people what they want.
We have an update on the health of Dak Prescott, and there is a legitimate quarterback competition in New England. But to start the show with Joel Embiid signing a 4-year extension with the Philadelphia 76ers. It comes at the price of $196 million. Jalen, what does this deal mean for the Sixers moving forward?
It's great that they have their MVP candidate under contract the next few years. The most physically dominant big we have in the game. A guy that can take you out to three, can play for mid-range. But what really makes him special is that right there. His ability to be physically dominant in the paint. And Health is going to always be a concern for Joel Embiid. You're not looking for him to play 75 or 80 games a season. So it's important to continue to build out your roster around him. But also, the process is still processing. Because I remember a time when they had Sam Hinkie and they had Brett Brown. They had Joel Embiid and they had Ben Simmons. Oh, wait. Now they got Daryl Morey, Doc Rivers, Joel Embiid, and Ben Simmons. In the last couple of years, what I've seen with my two eyes, Toronto Raptors win the East and win the championship. Miami Heat win the East. I saw the Bucks win the East and win the championship. And then you know what else happened in that conference? The Nets got better. They added KD. They added Harden. They added Kyrie. The Miami Heat retooled this offseason. So I don't think the Philadelphia 76ers are going to win the East this year. But obviously, when you have a franchise-level player like Joel Embiid, you happy that he chose to stay. You happy that he's still under contract. But the elephant in the room is what happens with Ben Simmons. That's going to be the next domino for the Philadelphia 76ers.
That is everything for this team, is what are you going to get back for Ben Simmons? Ben Simmons might start the season on this team, but he will not finish this season on this team, I believe. And you know that the rumors are that Daryl Morey is just waiting to see what happens with Dame Lillard. And I would say this, if you put Dame Lillard alongside Joel Embiid, you have a much better shot of winning the East than if you have Ben Simmons alongside Joel Embiid. Mr. Rose, why are you so upset?
We're not doing that. We're not doing that. We ain't about to. Let me tell you something. If the Philadelphia 76ers, with their roster and their assets, get on the telephone and try to call the Portland Trail Blazers about Dame Lillard, voicemail. And people don't even listen to voicemail these days. You're not getting Dame from Portland to go to Philly. There's a chance you may be able to get CJ McCollum. Like, Dame's in the same category as Joel Embiid. These are two of the top 8 players in the whole league. I don't see that deal remotely taking place, especially if I'm the Portland Trail Blazers.
Well, I think it's very important that the 76ers have Joel Embiid on this extension for 4 more years. However, as you mentioned, with the Nets and what they have, and with the Bucks and what they just did, this is not a top 2 team in the East. They're going to need to get something back in a Simmons deal. They're going to need to retool, re-up in order to get into the top 2 of the Eastern Conference, because I don't see it happening with Ben Simmons or anybody not named Dame Lillard back for Ben Simmons. Jalen Rose, and Jalen Green, the number 2 pick in the draft, is one of those. However, he wanted to be the number 1 pick in the draft, and here is what he said about your home city of Detroit, Michigan. Here's what Jalen said about not getting picked number 1. Quote, I wanted to be the number 1 pick, but as for the location, I didn't want to be in Detroit. With Detroit, it felt like I was just going back to the G League bubble, and I just got out of the bubble. That's pretty much what it was. In the G League bubble, I didn't really have anything to do but just stay in the gym. That's what it felt like in Detroit. I wouldn't be stepping outside in Detroit. There are not many things you can do in Detroit like that. Mr. Rose, your namesake just disrespected your hometown. How do you feel about his sentiments about your home city?
Rest in peace, Jeannie Cassandra Rose, my beloved mom, a Detroit native who created the name Jalen that he carries. But if you think I'm going to come on this show and blast a namesake, he's going to have to do a lot more than that. He's a terrific talent. He has a great personality, and he has a flair for the dramatic. Jacoby, you and I know what this is. This is competitive jealousy that he didn't go number 1 overall.
Yep.
Going into the draft process, he said out of his mouth that he would love to be a Piston, go number 1, and live in Detroit. Well, Detroit took Cade Cunningham. So now he's creating a rivalry with Cade Cunningham, who just so happened to get drafted by Detroit. I don't know how many times he's been there to say that there's nowhere to hang out, but newsflash, there's places to hang out everywhere when you got millions of dollars, ladies and gentlemen. This is just really one of those things when you look back at his career, if he becomes what I believe he could become, because I believe he got all NBA special type of talent. We'll look back at this like we look at MJ or like we look at Kobe, and we'll say he took that slight of not being number one or not getting chosen to Kate Cunningham as motivation to fuel his fire. That's really all this is. It's not about Detroit. They just so happen to be the team with the number one overall pick.
Jalen Green looked great in Summer League while he was there. Kate Cunningham